What's up, guys? Philip Collin, Pack Pythons, back in the snake pit, and today, I don't know. It's been a couple weeks. I got results back from Fishhead Labs for the Nidovirus testing we did. Those results came back about 2 weeks ago. I've been busy with, obviously, the holidays and stuff, but in reality, even if I wasn't busy, I don't know if I would have posted anything yet because I don't know what to do. I'm really stumped. It's starting to feel like this Nidovirus chase is turning into a ghost hunt. The results that came back from RAL, I sent, for a little background, I sent 10 Nidovirus tests out to RAL, and I sent the exact same 10 samples out to Fishhead. They went to RAL. RAL came back all negative, and they suspected that the samples might have been degraded in shipping because USPS misplaced the package. Well, then those same 10 samples were sent to Fishhead Labs. Their process takes a little longer, but about a week and a half later, we got their results back, and they were exactly the same, 10 negative results. And at this point, I genuinely am stumped. I can't help but feel like I'm wasting my time. And not to say that the animals don't deserve this level of care, or that I don't see some positive outcome in the future, but I really feel like every time I have thought I had a good grip of what was going on, some new bit of information came along that just threw a wrench in the whole idea of how this works or how to solve it. It's been brutal. I'm pretty close to $5,000 that I've spent so far on just medical expenses or vet expenses and testing. It's getting a little steep there. And then earlier on, we lost 5 animals. Lost probably about $2,000 worth of animals. So it's just, been financially tough, but we're doing all right. The main concern right now is just I don't see an end game. Okay, so Nido is contagious. We know that. I know for sure that one of my animals had Nidovirus. That was confirmed with a necropsy and with RNA or PCR testing, PCR RNA testing. And that animal was exposed to several other animals through breeding last season. That was Hera? Venus, I think. Yes, I think it was Venus. She was paired with several, with one male, but that male was also bred with several other females, and those females were bred with other males. So theoretically, all of these animals were, all of my adults, if you look at the chart and map it all out of who was with who, just about everybody was in bed with each other. So in theory, all of my adults should be sick. But that's not the case. Other than the one female that tested positive in the necropsy, I have gotten 0 other positive Nidovirus tests on any of my adults, which is very confusing because the sickness that began spreading at the beginning of this year that caused me to eventually come to the conclusion that I had Nidovirus in my collection. That sickness that was going around was spreading all over. It was in some of my yearling ball pythons. It was in a number of my adults. I would say probably close to 10 adults at different points had were showing clinical signs of the illness. It just doesn't make sense that all of that sickness was going on, and that out of all of that, we only found one Nido positive animal. And then after discovering Nido in the collection, we tested every single animal. 69 animals were tested. Out of those 69, zero of the adults, even the ones that were showing clinical signs, 0 of them came back positive. I got 3 positive Nido tests for some hatchlings that I produced, and my assumption is that the only way they could have gotten it, because they were produced here and they were not maternally incubated, they were artificially incubated. So according to the current understanding of how this virus works, there's no way they could have gotten it from the parent directly. So it would have been cross-contamination at some point of me handling the parent, or handling the animal that was Nido positive, and then handling these hatchlings, or potentially using equipment, tools, and going from one to the other and passing sickness from one to the other. None of this is adding up. Then to finally get those, trying to parse these thoughts out. This is the reason I haven't uploaded in 2 weeks, is because I'm struggling to put this into a coherent statement. Finally get those 3 Nido positive animals. We separated them and put them in their own quarantine, separate from the primary quarantine where the animals with clinical signs were put. Those 3 have now since tested negative at 2 different facilities. So now I've got University of Florida telling me in a necropsy and a PCR test that I absolutely had Nidovirus in my collection. I have sickness spreading throughout my collection that my exotic vet could not explain through any typical means. She directed me to Nido. I'm doing this out of order, but I'm just kind of rambling and listing the contradictory circumstances. There should be Nidovirus detectable in this collection, and it's not. RAL told me that Nidovirus positive, that the 3 animals were Nidovirus positive, and now they're testing negative, which is something that is documented, that they can go from showing signs to not showing signs. That does happen. And then Fishhead is telling me the same thing. They're not showing signs of illness or of the virus. So it's getting to the point now that why bother keep testing if the results are so wishy-washy? I planned to do research with the 3 that were positive, but if I can't even get a positive result, then there's no way to test the viral load on the animals, which was a big part of the experiments I had planned. So I don't want to kill off my collection. That's a lot of people's first step when they find out they have Nido, is they just euthanize. And I say kill off, and it sounds cold, and I'm not saying that those other people are just murdering their animals. They're euthanizing them for to protect the rest of the collection. At this point, I think that I do need to go that route. to some extent. So I have one animal that's still showing clinical signs of a mild respiratory infection. And I believe that animal needs to be put down. And I think going forward, any other animals that show signs of respiratory infection are going to have to be euthanized. It's the simplest solution because, for example, that animal is showing signs of respiratory infection. It's one of the adults that was in bed with all of the other sick animals, and it's tested Nido negative 3 times already. I don't know what to do about that. All right. I'm not sure where I just cut that video off, but I was rambling, and I really just want to tidy this video up, give it some purpose, and see what you guys think, because I'm kind of at a loss. I'm not at a loss for words. I could talk about this crap all day long, which is why I had to cut the video, because I get into this thought spiral, and that's where I've been for a couple weeks, just trying to piece this together into a coherent thought and tell you guys where I'm at and get some feedback. This is a mess. So, I don't want to just get rid of my collection. I don't want to be the jerk that just sells off his animals. I don't want to abandon this mission of, bettering the community and educating others. And I don't want others to see me get to some point of hopelessness and feel like they're in a hopeless situation. But the reality is that's where I feel like I'm at. When I said at the beginning of this video, I feel like I'm chasing a ghost. I mean it. Every time I think I hear a noise or I see something, pursue that thing, whatever it might be, that like, oh, maybe this is the solution, maybe this is the problem. And then something else, I hear some new noise or see some new thing, and oh no, I was completely wrong. Let's, whatever, let's move on. So the experiments and the testing, I don't know that I could test anything reliably when the window of these animals testing positive seems to be extremely, extremely narrow. So like an animal can test positive for a very short period of time, and then very soon after test completely negative and seem perfectly healthy. That means that testing for any sort of experimental purposes would be very unreliable. So on that note, the funds that we've raised so far, I haven't spent any of it yet. And I think there's a good chance I'm probably just going to donate that to a lab that is actively pursuing Nidovirus research. And I'll probably leave those accounts open, and the funds that I get in there, if I get any from new viewers seeing the old videos, then I'll just forward that to the the labs. I've got 2 that were very helpful and a 3rd that was also helpful. I'm not sure if they all take donations. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I might just divvy it up amongst all of them so that I'm contributing to everyone. It's obviously not a lot of money. At this point, it's like $60 or something like that. But I just don't know that I can trust myself to sort this out, which sucks to say. It's not fun. It's not a fun situation. But besides that, what else do I do? there's about 25 animals in my collection right now that were for sale 6 months ago, before all this, or maybe not 6 months ago, but a time ago, right before all this crap happened. And I don't plan to keep those animals long term. I never did. I intend to keep them as long as I need to, in order to be sure that I'm not causing harm to anyone else's collection. But I don't know that I can just grab an animal out of this wall and sell it, trusting that it's, you know, it's 100% healthy or whatever. I'm contemplating creating another quarantine setup, which may just be that I take one of my shelves and separate it, put it by itself. And the idea there would be to isolate a number of animals that have never tested positive. So these are animals that have already tested negative for nidovirus. There will be animals that have never shown any clinical signs of illness, period. And they will be animals that are currently visibly healthy and seemingly fine, and were also never kept directly next to animals that did test positive. So the 3 animals or 4 animals that did test positive, anything associated with those will not be ever, I don't know if they'll ever be put for sale. I'll probably just keep those long term, and wishful thinking, hopefully they'll be fine. So what do you guys think of that? I don't know how many of y'all are going to stick around to this point in the video, but I don't want to just blindly euthanize these animals. All of these behind me have tested negative for Nido. They've all shown no clinical signs of illness, and I feel pretty confident that they're healthy. But separating some, monitoring them in isolation for a month or 2, and then probably retest them all for nidovirus just out of precaution, so that at that point they will have all been tested at least twice, some of them 4 times by then, and then put them for sale. And then it's not so much about getting the money. At this point, I would nearly give them away, to be completely honest, but I will be selling them, just for the sake of selling them and not diluting the market to be handing out snakes to everybody. But I would also obviously explain to the buyer that I had nidovirus in my collection. I'll explain all the steps of what I went through in order to be sure that these animals are healthy. And honestly, I think the chance of those animals being Nido positive is just as high as any other animal that you would buy from someone who wasn't tending to potential nidovirus situation. Based on statistics that the labs have explained to me, it seems like you'd kind of be in a better boat to buy it from someone who knew he had it and sorted it out and whatever. I'm not trying to be cocky in this situation and think that I'm better than anybody else. Clearly, I don't fully understand the situation, but to the best of my ability, I feel like I can potentially provide healthy animals to a buyer. But I think long term, as far as pack pythons goes, I really feel like I need to reduce my collection down to a point where I'm just focused on the specific projects that I am most heavily invested in already. So I have a lot of odds and end animals in here that were like long-term projects. I don't know what to do with them at this point. I don't know if I should keep them. I don't know if I should. The problem with breeding ball pythons, especially, is that at some point, all of these animals will be adults. And because of the way we tend, the community tends to mix genetics, long term down the road, at some point, these adult ball pythons will all be effectively in bed with each other to some extent. You put one male with several females, and then potentially those females the next year could be with different males, and that process continues and continues, and inevitably you're constantly mixing, and it's just the risk of putting myself back in this situation is pretty terrifying. So how do I continue? How do I continue to do something that I'm so passionate about without all of that stress and burden? And I'm considering reducing my ball pythons down to a level that makes sense, that I can manage, of animals that I know are healthy, and then branching out into other species of python. And that may sound like it doesn't really make a difference. So like, let's say I sold 30 of these ball pythons, and then let's say I replaced them with 30 other pythons, and I get 1.2, so like a male and 2 females of 10 different species of pythons, right? So now I effectively have the exact same number of pythons. How is that any better? Well, follow my chain of logic. If I've only got 1 male and 2 females of any given species, then that's only 3 animals that are potentially exposed to each other in breeding. And my ideal situation is that I would be buying not necessarily purebred or whatever of these species, but getting like the natural form of each species, not mutations. So I won't be encouraging myself to mix and mash and bring in new genes and all this other stuff, but more like a educational, conservation type environment of producing clean genetic animals of the natural colorations, natural mutations, not anything exotic. And that would be fun. That feeds into my passion. And that also prevents, let's say I add 30 animals, 27 of those animals will never be bred with these 3. It'll just be these 3 bred together, and these 3 bred together, and these 3 bred together, and these 3 bred together. So effectively, going from having one large colony of animals with infinite possibility of mixing and matching, and going down to several colonies, much smaller population, with simple possibilities for conservation purposes and just education and just being, passionate about pythons. There's several out there that are beautiful that I would love to own. And I really think that's the route I need to go. And honestly, if I could get it down to just having 1.2 ball pythons, I would consider that. I think I really would love to collect 1 of every species of python, minus the big 3. being African rocks, berms, and retics. I'm not interested in keeping anything that big. And there are several other species that get about that big, but they're a little more slender bodied and not so much to handle. There's 39 species of Pythonidae, or however you say that. And if you take the big three out, that's 36 species. I already own one of the species, so I just need 35 more. Let's do that. That seems like fun. It seems like something that's less burdensome and less risky. I'm not against this. I think it's fun. I absolutely want to continue to breed pythons. It's amazing. I'm not interested in live birth, boas, and all that. The whole live birth thing, super messy. Not my thing. Pulling eggs and incubating eggs and hatching eggs, so much fun. It reminds me of back when I was farming and had chickens and ducks. I loved it. But all right, guys, I'm gonna cut it off there. Appreciate y'all hanging out to the end. I could ramble for days on this crap, but you guys are great. Stay tuned. You know, if I come up with anything else to talk about, I will absolutely be here and ready to share it. And I don't know where this channel is going to head. Obviously, in the immediate future, we'll continue to sort through this and hash out the rest of it. But long term, I don't know. Maybe we'll be a conservation education channel with all kinds of species of pythons. I think that'd be pretty cool. But till next time, y'all take it easy. If it ain't easy, don't take it. Peace.